Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of Pip's Christmas Atlantic Adventure. Now if you tuned in yesterday, you'll know that today the plan was to go from Lisbon up to Keflavik in Iceland and then across to Gander in Newfoundland in northeastern Canada. Well, today has not gone entirely according to plan. I'm not very happy about it either, to be honest. So instead of right now sitting in Gander in Canada, I am in fact sitting in Prestwick in Scotland. So back to the old Jeppesen app. Instead of going up here to Iceland, then across here, down here somewhere to Gander, I am here in bonnie Scotland, Prestwick, Glasgow Prestwick, as Ryanair would call it. It's actually about 70 or 80 miles from Glasgow, but hey, it's a beautiful part of the world though, up on the West Highland coast here. Very nice part of the world, but not where I wanted to be. Not where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in Canada eating moose steaks. So what happened today? So let's rewind back to yesterday. So the plan was taking one of the Hawkers, or in fact we were going as a 3-ship. There were 2 Hawkers and 1 Falcon 2000 going across. The 2 Hawkers going to Wichita in Kansas, and the Falcon is going somewhere else. I can't remember where. But he was coming up to Keflavik as well. Then he was going straight to the US without the intermediate stop, because the Falcon's got much more range than we do. But now, what I didn't mention yesterday is our Hawkers are Hawker 800s. We've got a whole bundle of them. But actually, what we also have, as well as the Hawker 800s, we've got a small handful, I think 6 Hawker 750s. Now, to look at them externally, they're identical. The Hawker 750s and the Hawker 800s are identical. You'd have to really know what you were looking for to tell the difference just by looking at them. But here's the major difference. The Hawker 800s have 3 fuel tanks, the 2 wing tanks, and then we have a center tank, or a ventral tank we call it, which is at the back of the aircraft. And that ventral tank has in it about 2 hours worth of fuel. So the Hawker 800 models are really very good with fuel and range. We can do probably 2,500 miles. But the Hawker 750s do not have that third fuel tank. Instead, that fuel tank is taken out and it's been turned into an extra baggage compartment. It's kind of an odd shape. It's sort of long and thin. It's good for things like skis and awkwardly shaped sort of long squishy bags. But it's baggage and not fuel. So, and the aircraft that I'm flying is one of those Hawker 750s, so we don't have the same range as the Hawker 800s. The other Hawker that's going with us is an 800, so they've got all the range in the world, so not a problem. But we were a little bit more limited. In fact, when Dispatch put the flight plan together and sent it through last night or this morning, we had a look at it, and actually with the northerly winds, it was really very tight on fuel. In fact, we had, I think, 2 minutes worth of extra fuel. So we had our, the trip fuel. Go back and listen to the fuel planning episode. I forget what number it was, but we had our trip fuel, we had our taxi fuel, we had our 5% contingency fuel, we had our diversion fuel, and then, of course, our standard 30 minutes reserve fuel. Now, the filed alternate for Keflavik was somewhere called Egilstadir, which is on the other side of the island. In fact, let me pull it up here. I've got it highlighted, in fact. So here's highlighted is Keflavik, and then over here is Egilstadir, which is about a 50-minute flying time from Keflavik. So it's quite a lot of diversion fuel. So it was very tight on the plan, on the fuel plan. And these strong northerly winds, we were thinking, I don't know, it will probably work, but let's just see. So we got airborne, all hunky-dory. We're heading north across the Bay of Biscay and up towards the UK airspace. And of course, we're monitoring the fuel very closely. We're flying the fuel plan. We're at long-range cruise, actually, so that the speed is quite low. We're like the slowest thing in the air. We've got seagulls overtaking us up at level 400 as we sip the fuel in the most economical way that we possibly can. And honestly, I'd expected, having previous experience of doing longer flights on these aircraft, we've done quite often. We've done flights from London to places like Ekaterinburg, which is almost in Siberia. For the aircraft, a very long flight, 6-hour flights almost. So you fly these long-range speeds, long-range flight profiles, and you start to make fuel as you go along. So as you get further and further into the flight, that kind of reserve is gradually building up as you use less fuel than the plan is asking for. So that was kind of what I was expecting today, but actually it just wasn't happening. The headwinds were a little bit stronger, and the aircraft just wasn't really performing as advertised. Perhaps it was the temperatures outside were a little bit not as predicted. So we just weren't really making any extra fuel. In fact, if anything, we were using more than the plan had predicted. So we were looking at it and we were thinking, God, you know what? This is just, it's getting a bit tight. Now, the obvious thing that we could do here, it's entirely legal and it's kind of what I had in mind the whole time. So here's Keflavik, and there's the alternate all the way over the other side, over here. Now what we've got just here is Reykjavik. It's literally just around the corner from Keflavik. It's much, much closer. So what we could have done was to have replanned, in-flight replanning, and taken Reykjavik as our en route alternate. Sorry, not as our en route alternate, as our destination alternate. And the fuel needed to get to there is obviously much, much less than it is to Egilsstaðir. So that would have been a much better plan. However, the weather in Iceland today is absolutely foul. The forecast was showing some very strong winds, albeit kind of down the runway. Now, Keflavik has got two big, long runways, one north-south, one roughly east-west. Reykjavik, on the other hand, it has a number of runways, but they're all very short. The only one we can really use is 0119. And even then, we're a little bit limited with that runway because it's still quite short. But the winds were, at the time, they were okay, but they were forecast to come around during the day, and it would start to turn into quite a hefty crosswind component. So we were thinking about it, and we thought, we could just plan and use Reykjavik as the alternate, and we could get in there, no problem, that's fine. But if for some reason we got delayed in Reykjavik, perhaps with the oceanic clearances, then we might just end up in a situation where we can't get out again, because we'll have some massive crosswinds, and we really need all the fuel we can get to get across to Gander. And the other thing, of course, the big problem we had today, that I hadn't kind of envisaged until this morning when I looked at all the paperwork, is that the NATS tracks, the North Atlantic track system, the westerly tracks going from Europe to the States, they get published every day. You get a set of west tracks published by Shanwick, and then you get the eastbound tracks for later on in the evening for the flights going from the States to Europe. Now the westbound tracks, the NAT tracks going this way across the Atlantic to the States today were all the way up here. The first track started kind of almost on the southern coast of Greenland, Iceland. Track A, Track B, Track C, going down this way. So to get from Iceland to Gander, we were going to have to go across the NAT tracks, which was it's a bit of a pain. We can do it, but they had filed us at level 280, which is really very low, to go beneath the NAT tracks. So from a fuel point of view, we would be burning a lot more fuel at level 280 than we would up at level 400 or 410. I think the highest NAT track finished at 370, so we could probably get above it. But it was just another headache to consider diverting somewhere, going over in East Iceland. Then it's going to be that bit further to fly at level 280 to get across the Atlantic. So it was just a lot of things going on in our head. And eventually we kind of got towards UK airspace, and we thought, you know what, we're not in a rush here. We haven't got any passengers. We haven't got a schedule. It's, we're our own boss. We can do what we need to do. We're not in a rush. sod it, let's just drop in somewhere in the UK and get some fuel. It won't take long. It'll delay us an hour at the most. So we'll just do that, and we'll have all the fuel in the world, and we'll just have options galore. No big deal. Why make life more difficult for ourselves? So we said, fine, let's just go to Prestwick. It's almost en route. It's very quiet. We'll just drop in. We'll have the fuel truck there waiting for us. We'll fill up again. We'll bung on loads of fuel. More than a ton, several tons of fuel, and we'll be golden. We'll be good to go. So that's what we planned on. We let London ATC know. Said, hey, just so you know, we're going to pop into Prestwick. They couldn't care. They said, yep, fine. We called the company on the sat phone. Said, this is what we're going to do, and they said, hey, yep, that's fine. And then we also called the other hawker, who was probably about 30 minutes in front of us. They took off before us and were probably flying a little bit faster than us too. We called them on the sat phone and said, hey, we're going to jump into Prestwick for some fuel. We'll catch you up later on, either in Iceland or in Gander. Fine, no worries. I felt good about that decision. Why take any extra risks? So there we go, heading into Prestwick. And we finally got switched over to Prestwick Approach to get vectored onto the ILS. It was pretty naff weather up in Prestwick. But then we were amazed when we heard the other hawker just cleared for the ILS. And we thought, what? Was that the right call sign? Was that the other hawker? And we listened, and sure enough it was. And we were like, what the hell? What are they doing here? They're meant to be almost in Iceland by now. So I thought, shoot, what on earth's happened? Did they have a problem? Okay, well, we'll find out in a minute, I guess. So we landed. And blow me, as we taxied off the runway, not only is the other hawker there, the Falcon is there as well. And we're like, geez, what's going on here? There's obviously been a change. Let's find out what it is. So we pulled up, and you know what? The fuel truck was there waiting for us exactly as we'd asked. We pulled up and turned on the phone, and there was just a very short message saying, everyone spend the night in Prestwick. What? So I don't know exactly what happened, but it seems to be that someone much further up the food chain in our flight ops heard that we were diverting and just assumed it was because we didn't like the weather in Iceland perhaps, and said, well, if they're not happy, then everyone needs to go to Prestwick and we'll spend the night there. And that wasn't at all why we were diverting. Right, the weather in Iceland was pretty horrible. The winds were going to become an issue later in the day. But the plan as it was fine. We could have been in and out of Prestwick, up into Iceland, refueled in Iceland, and off again across the Atlantic before the nasty weather hit. But I don't know why. Someone in the office, the duty managerial pilot person, perhaps got the wrong end of the stick, I'm not sure, but had ordered everyone to divert to Prestwick. So they'd phoned them on the sat phones and told them, and they said to us, hey, they were arguing with the guys on the phone, saying, why? What reason? The weather's fine. There's no issue here. Why are we diverting? Let's just keep going. There's no problem. But that was the decision. So here we are in Prestwick. Now, to be fair, when I just checked a few moments ago, the weather up in Iceland was really horrible. It was sort of gusting 55 knots, 40 knots steady across the runways. Low visibilities, driving snow and rain and all manner of nastiness. So that clearly is horrible stuff, and we wouldn't want to fly in that. But that's now. We could have been in and out before all the nasty stuff hit us. But c'est la vie. Here we are. Not eating moose steaks, but eating something Scottish. Haggis steaks. Haggis and whiskey is on the menu for us tonight. Now, logistically, that kind of does throw a spanner in the works now as to what's going to happen. Like I say, the Falcon guys, they're going off and doing their own thing. I think they're going somewhere in Florida, I think. But for us four guys, the other three guys are, roster-wise, a day behind me. I'm on my day 3 of 6. They're on their day 4 of 6. So they've got a little bit more time pressure now to get to Wichita or somewhere and get back again before Christmas. So I'm not entirely sure what the plan is going to be now. It may be that we tomorrow go to Iceland, Gander, and then just press on to Bangor. Still haven't worked out how to say it. Sorry, Micah. And perhaps overnight there. Some possibilities for a bit of fun in Maine. I'm not sure. And then early the following morning, do the shortish flight across to Wichita, and then immediately just jump on our airlines and come back home as planned. Now, personally, I want to have my 24 hours off in Wichita. I want to eat steaks and go to seedy bars and do all that good, wholesome American stuff. Not just get off one aeroplane and straight onto another for 10 hours. But the other guys, they're quite keen just to get home. And as I said yesterday as well, there's the potential for some industrial action over the Christmas period with baggage handlers striking. A small number of BA cabin staff are striking as well. So they're very much of the opinion that they don't care about the duty rest times. They say, to hell with that, let's just get on the flight. They can sleep on the flight and come back home. So maybe they'll do that, and I'll just kind of stay on my own in Wichita for the day. Maybe do some shopping. I mean, that won't be nearly as much fun. Who wants to go to seedy bars on their own? Not me. I'm not really going to go to a seedy bar. I might go to a seedy bar. I might. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, the other thing is, of course, just having a quick look on Skyscanner or Kayak, the ticket prices for coming home on the 23rd are absolutely astronomical. Around $6,000 or $7,000 each, in fact, for a business class ticket coming out of Dallas back to London. So I suspect the guys and girls in our travel department their eyes are popping out of their skulls at the moment. Now, I don't know exactly how it works. I know we get some very preferential rates with BA, because our original airline tickets were sort of fully flexible, but whether they can just transfer them to the following day, I don't really know. But so, what I hoped would be a fun, relaxed trip is kind of turning into a bit of a ball ache, actually, now. There's a little bit of time pressure to get this job done, which isn't really what I wanted. But still, it's still a good adventure. Being in this kind of sector of aviation, if you don't like changes, last-minute changes, and you don't like uncertainty, then you're in the wrong job, mate, for sure. There's changes all the time. You just never, ever know where you're going to end up. I absolutely had no clue that I was going to end up in Scotland today. And who knows where I'll end up tomorrow. Hopefully it will be somewhere on the other side of the Atlantic, but you never know. You never know in this job. So that's that. That's the end of day 2 of my little adventure. Let's see what day 3 brings. Thanks for some nice messages on Twitter, by the way. What I'm going to do, this little videos I'm doing now, are kind of just for you. Ooh, you people. You, Micah, and you, Jen, and Stuart, and all those other people. I'm pointing at you right now. These videos here are for you. I'm going to stitch them all together and kind of release them as one, sort of movie all stitched up together with perhaps some video and other stuff. Make a nice production. But yeah, some nice messages on Twitter. Somebody mentioned, hey, Pip, if all the Hawkers are going, what does that mean for you? Are you changing jobs or changing aircraft? Well, yes, is the short answer to that. Certainly changing aircrafts anyway, still within Safe Jets. But I will almost certainly be going to a new aircraft type sometime in 2017. That's an ongoing saga, and I'm not going to give away any details yet because, truth be told, I'm not entirely sure yet what aircraft I'm going to. But, well, it's another story. We'll talk about that another time, I'm sure. So, let's see what happens tomorrow. I'll hopefully record another video. I still haven't found a Santa hat, though. I really want to find a Santa hat. We're going to go off into the Prestwick town in probably an hour or so for a bit of dinner. In fact, less than an hour, in 20 minutes for a bit of dinner. So hopefully I can find or steal a Santa hat from somewhere. We do have some Christmassy lights, though, which we've some battery-powered Christmas lights, some kind of twinkly lights, which we've strung up around the cockpit. That's probably nice and safe. But it's all looking very, very Christmassy in there. But I'll record something else tomorrow, hopefully. Keep you updated. Any questions on Twitter, then send them my way. Until tomorrow, wherever you happen to be, safe flying and enjoy your Christmassy period. Alrighty, see you later.